Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to the League Two podcast here on EFL Debate. And if you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. Delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Ed Walker, an expert on all things fourth tier. And we're also joined by Ben Jones from the Super White Army as well. Great to have you on, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Ben, I wanted to come to you first on Tranmere Rovers. To what extent has this difficult first 10 games, or certainly a difficult September and first half of October, has that come as a surprise to you, or something that you'd sort of anticipated with some of the absentees?
I don't know, it's hard to say. We've obviously had a few issues with availability for different reasons lately, but I think most of us expected a season of kind of mid-table meandering and being a few positions either side of that wouldn't be too unexpected. Still, I don't know. There's been some good games so far this season. There's been some very bad games. I think there's still, I don't know, reasons to be hopeful that we don't end up in a similar kind of season to last year. But yeah, this weekend just gone was a little bit worrying because it was a very passive performance, which was one of the first ones we've had like that under Andy Crosby. Generally, we've been quite, at the very least, combative, and we've been very on the front foot, and we've tried to play football. I think I'm thinking back to Walsall a few weeks ago here, where we played okay going forward and just struggled maybe defensively in some of those transitions and so on. But
Sure.
This weekend just gone was a bit more of an alarm bell because we were so passive and did absolutely nothing first.
Yeah, absolutely.
The dog does not like you talking about Tranmere.
I know. Well, I was going to say the dog's expressing its discontent towards the Palios regime. Ben, if you need to take a moment to see to your dog, that's absolutely fine. Ben, Ed, I wanted to come to you on Tranmere. It does feel like, for me, there's not enough of a sense of direction around Tranmere Rovers. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of, is a takeover going to happen? And that it looked quite hopeful at a certain point, and then that's gone very quiet in more recent months. And I do wonder, and it might be that, the status quo for now is how things are, but it does feel like this is a club that wants change. And until that happens, it's difficult for the club to sort of embrace the present in a way.
Really tricky, because I remember thinking about the start of the season, and they'd had that really strong recovery under Crosby. They'd gotten away from serious trouble and got it secure. And you were really torn about what comes next. Does it kind of continue on, in which case have a good time? There was probably still that feeling that they need to get this takeover done, just get this new era, this new ambition, this new investment into the place and start progressing on from there. And I looked at this team at the start of the season and thought I quite like the core, sort of from defence up to midfield. Front options maybe a bit mixed. I'd still think Ironside should be quite a good addition into that. But what you felt a bit of confidence with Tranmere was they have a guy in Amari Patrick who is one of the best players in the league and a game changer. And literally at the start of the season, we were seeing some goals and displays that suggested that. I almost wonder if people are starting to suss him out, or the opposition kind of getting, well, if we get on this guy, it kind of stifles everything Tranmere have to themselves. And also, he seems to be playing wing back at the minute. And I just think he's a guy who's so influential like that. I don't want him playing left wing back in a sort of 3-4-2-1 shape. I want him in one of the more expressive areas, maybe behind the striker.
I think the tricky thing with where we actually play Patrick is, in terms of his build-up play, he's very poor. And kind of playing him in that 10 role, or an advanced midfield, or whatever you want to call it, it sort of harms our build-up play quite a bit. We struggle to get the ball in from kind of like the midfield through to that final third. Whereas,
do you think he's a big moments player rather than an involvement player?
I think that's a fair summary. Yeah, I think Charlie Whittaker's probably doing a much better job for us in general kind of the build-up play.
Well, I thought from the highlights of Saturday against Barnet, there was a lovely move where he really carried the ball and showed a little bit of speed, not like searing pace, but just to the extent that he eluded his opponents. And if you can add that to some of that link-up play that we know he's got, I think he could be a real asset that you've got on your hands.
Yeah, so I think the issue Crosby's having at the minute is he wants to play this 3-4-3, which he recruited Patrick Brough to play the left centre back role for, because he has similar kind of attributes to Leo O'Connor. And then O'Connor's been injured for most of the season, and I think Patrick Brough's form's dropped off a bit. Maybe, I don't know what the reasons for that are, but it essentially means that where we want to play a high press, we then don't have these two wide centre backs that are strong in those kind of defensive transitions and have the recovery pace and being strong in the individual duels and so on. And I think that's harmed us a bit. And then because of that, he's kind of Crosby that is kind of panicked a little bit and is searching for a way where we can be a bit more defensively solid. And in the games he's tried that, it's kind of completely nullified us going forward. So then we kind of have had this weird sort of yo-yo between being too expansive, like we were at Walsall, to then being too passive and negative, like we were a few weeks ago against Cambridge when we drew 0-0, when we could have played for a month and either side would have scored.
I mean, I don't know if it was that you were too expansive at Walsall. I felt that it was more that you struggled with the engagement side. Obviously, probably didn't help that that weekend Noah Kenner had just come back from international school. But I think that's possibly the issue, that Kenner hasn't lived up to maybe his August form, that Richie Smallwood hasn't lived up to last season's form with City, and there's question marks over him from a mobility perspective and whether it's going to work for him as a two-man midfield. Although, to be fair, he played in the same formation with Bradford City last season, so I don't know.
I think Smallwood's definitely a big area for concern because the week just gone he couldn't pass the ball 5 yards, and that really didn't work for us. So I think Sam Finley's going to probably take that place for the next few weeks now. But I think the really frustrating thing is after those first sort of 4 or 5 games of the season, we looked like we were going to carry on what had been happening in the spring, with arguably a slightly stronger set of players than we kind of finished last season with. And we had sort of a style of play that looked, settled, where it was going to be a very high line, not necessarily high press, but it was high line to squeeze the pitch kind of thing, and we were going to get the wing backs very high up the pitch, almost as kind of like forwards at times.
Sure.
And that was then going to create kind of space for.
Well, you were big on low crosses and cutbacks, weren't you?
It's a pre-season to you that I felt we would score a lot of goals from the wing backs getting to the byline and then pulling the ball back. And as it turns out, I'm pretty sure, without checking, that we've scored at least half a dozen goals like that, this season. So that has actually happened. Just and in terms of scoring goals, we've been doing okay. We've got sort of 16, 17 league goals, which is
despite the question marks down up top as well. So it does show that if Ironside can find that sharpness, that you've actually got some potential going for, and that's the frustrating thing. And I suppose the club would argue that if Leo O'Connor stays fit and you have those wide centre halves, him and Bruh in situ, and you have your first choice goalkeeper available and aren't having to play 60-year-old Joe Murphy in the net, sorry Joe, all those sorts of things, it actually looks quite good that you're recruiting quality over quantity. And you might say the club's actually been quite smart, but because it's gone against you when you sail close to the wind in terms of squad size and options, you can come a cropper as well, and maybe we're seeing a bit of that.
Is there a bit of hope that comes with getting Aaron McGowan in? Because it just covers all areas on that. I'm particularly thinking about maybe does he almost substitute on that left-hand side at the moment?
Yeah, I think it sort of adds a little bit to the chaos, because in terms of where he plays, I mean, I had him down as kind of like a right back. I guess maybe he could play right centre back in the 3.
Yeah, that I would have guessed right centre half rather than as a wing back, I think.
Yeah, I don't see him as, but essentially we've got quite a lot of players in that little area of the pitch there, especially as Leo Connor isn't going to be out forever now. He should be back relatively soon now. But we've got Jaden Joseph, who looks really good going forward. He just doesn't seem to get a consistent position at the moment. He's played left wing back a few games when,
but it does allow you as well, Ben, to play Nathan Smith in the middle of the back 3 rather than on the right, because he's not an outside centre half.
Yeah, I think he has played the majority of the season in the middle. He's only played right centre back for maybe 1 or 2 games where
I think he might have covered there in the second half at Walsall at one point.
Because obviously Connor was already injured at that stage, and then Lowe, who was playing right centre back at the start of that game, also went off injured, and he's been out since. So I think we did something where we put Jordan Turnbull, central centre back.
That's the one,
but now he's injured as well. So we just seem to be a little bit unlucky there, where the injuries have happened have all been in quite concentrated areas rather than, sort of here and there. And it's, we suffered a bit for it. Interesting to see what happens with McGowan. I personally feel that at the minute we need to look to move to maybe a 4-3-3 and play with more kind of fullbacks. And then you can put Amari as that left forward, and kind of, I don't know who goes right forward, but then you
that's
can
the thing. Who does go right in this team? Because I don't
Taylor Harris.
Yeah,
Whittaker's not really a wide forward, is he? He's a 10.
No, it's quite. That's the tricky one. I always wonder if Jaden Joseph could play there, because he seems quite strong in 1v1 attacking sort of duels. Getting past players, and I don't think he's going to score you too many goals, but he could offer you more as like a traditional right winger. So I think he could do a role for us there. But I think it's more about with the 4-3-3. You could have some kind of combination of Kenneth Finley and Whittaker, or Kenneth Finley and Smallwood if you needed to be a bit more rigid.
Yeah, I would be looking to build around Whittaker myself. I think
I would absolutely. But I think with that 3 in the middle, we would hopefully see a bit more solidity than we've had lately, where the back 5 hasn't really given us the solidity, because we're kind of getting played through the middle. We're getting overloaded in the middle, and then goals are coming, and then transitions like at Walsall, the 3rd and 4th goals are just turnovers in possession, and there's basically no midfield there to stop.
Then just on an audio note, I don't know if it's going to work if the dog's in this mood, so it might be that
no worries.
we might have to postpone it. I know you've got to head off, haven't you, soon, because you're playing cricket, aren't you? So I think we might draw a line there, unless the dog's gone quiet now.
He's muted.
Yeah. That's what it is. There you go. I mean, I wanted to ask you, Ed, just talking about Tranmere's opponents, Barnet on Saturday. They fantastic form since losing the first 3 games. They've been one of the form teams in League 2, haven't they? Do you? Well, they are inside the top 7 now. Are you excited about their prospects now? They've got their spine back.
I mean, the thing to add about, yes, they're inside the top 7. Half the league's inside the top 7, Gab. There's 4 points between 4th and 14th. So this is part of the beauty of this early season. It still feels like, aside from maybe the top 2 have had very convincing starts, a lot of other teams still very catchable. And this weekend, it will shift around again and things will change. Barnet, I'm quite pleased. It felt like they had a really, really dodgy start. It particularly felt like they were getting really caught out in possession. Just these kind of errors that we hadn't seen from last year in the National League was happening here. And Brennan's chopped and changed a little bit, gone away from this more prevalent 3-4-2-1 shape he was playing previously, gone to more of a back 4, which is technically got 4 centre-backs in it.
Yeah.
I don't really think of Adam Senior and Critchlow Noble aren't really fullbacks. No. He makes it work, and I think part of that is maybe just the control and the options he's got with Hartigan as an option, Shelton's an option. I think Namdi Othball's been really good in midfield for them. I've been
Mm.
super impressed with that. And it's just getting these wide guys, Glover and Kanu, back to not really being wing backs, being wingers, just allowed to go and fully impact play to the
I
forwards.
absolutely love watching Ryan Glover play. I don't know about you, Ed, but he just always gets me off my seat every time I watch him play.
Yeah, I'm really positive by it. And bit of chopper change at striker too. It felt like we were starting out with Hugel. He then went to Ollie Hawkins to be a bit more focal point to some of the games, which worked to a certain degree. Now Liam Lover's back to being the guy who I thought was going to be the one to start the season. And Callum Stead finally starting to deliver a bit with goal contribution because he took a little while to get going too after such good numbers last year.
Well, I think he started the season injured, didn't he, Callum Stead? And I don't think that was ideal. So I think getting Stead and Unlove back has helped a lot. I think Unlove just for that physicality and that presence that he offers. And I think having somebody at the top end of the pitch that allows Barnet to play slightly longer, that means that they can mix their game up. And I actually think it improves the quality of their in-possession game because they don't have that situation where they can't go long. So it's like the intensity builds up because the opposition press and they're sort of struggling to, it can all feel a bit tense. When they have the option to go long, actually playing out to the back.
Yeah, and I would add it's Callum Stead with Unlover. It's almost kind of a little large partnership in some ways. Stead is given such a loose role. Might be officially a number 10 on the team sheet, but really he's alongside him or playing off him. So it's that option. Yeah. They can work it wide, get the wingers to attack the man, get around them and put deliveries in, or you can stretch the play a bit, get a bit of a flick onto Unlover and find Stead on the movement.
And Hartigan looked back to his best. That's slow to the season, Hartigan, but I think there's signs of him coming to the boil now as well. Ben, what did you make? If you're hopefully the audio is okay, I don't know. We'll try. We'll risk it. What did you make of Barnet at Prenton Park?
Yeah, just kind of back up what you said a little bit there about them being a bit adaptable. Maybe they learned from the early stage of the season where they were too focused on just kind of playing football. First half they played a lot of tidy football. They had nice movement. They, got around the pitch well. I think we tweaked a few bits sort of at half time, but they never looked in too much danger second half because whenever we did press slightly better second half, they just kind of clipped it over the top or down the channels, and they had that kind of out ball to relieve the pressure. Where kind of what I saw bits on TV from earlier in the season when that was happening, they were kind of inviting the pressure and allowing teams to get a little bit on top of them. But they managed that situation really well at the weekend, and they stopped us getting kind of any foothold in the game, and that game management seemed a bit more sort of League Two streetwise. So that would certainly be like a positive sign for them because sometimes you see these promoted sides who can play a little bit of football, but don't quite know where to mix it up in terms of what you need to do in League Two, where a lot of sides can press well on their day.
Ben, you're the perfect person to ask. What happened at the end of this game? Why did Kieran Slicker get sent off?
I don't actually know. I think I was a bit switched off at that point. Having been bored out of my mind, I don't think we had a shot on target. So I think I had somewhat switched off, and I turned away, turned back.
It was an altercation, wasn't it? I think something happened at the end.
Yeah, all I know was some kind of altercation. Something was said. I think there might have been a few hands thrown or something, and a whole load of nothing. I think.
We'll see. We'll let you attend to your dog, and good luck with the cricket later, Ben. And thanks for talking to us.
Cheers. Catch you later.
Top man. So Ed, I just wanted to take a macro look at League Two.
Oh boy.
I know. I'm going to fill you with dread that question. But I suppose the way I see it, I'm actually willing to draw a line in League Two, which
really?
I don't know.
Really?
I am. I'm willing to go early on this. I think 16th and above and 17th below are two broad groups, and I think we'll see a lot of movement within those two groups, but not a huge amount of movement between them between now and the end of the season. Do you want to disagree with me on that, or is it too early? Am I going too big too early?
The problem is Harrogate. You can never quite tell with Harrogate. I suppose
you think Harrogate will finish above 17th?
No, but that's not the point. It's more that Harrogate budget-wise, yes, they're in that bottom group, but also you just kind of depend on them for smash and grab wins. And I actually quite like this Harrogate team this year. I've really enjoyed particularly the kind of renaissance of Stephen Duke McKenna out on their
Yeah,
right-hand side. And that trio they've now got behind, I can't believe Jack Muldoon's still contributing for them after all these years there. But
yeah, fair play to them.
Reece Smith, Ellis Taylor, Stephen Duke McKenna, lovely trio to have behind there. And
Well,
I
Makalani
feel
as well.
a bit mean dragging them into the conversation with the bottom end tiers because I feel like I prefer them to some of the really low down sides at the moment. Maybe they're a
Okay.
kind of neutral ground at the minute in my eyes.
Would you have them as a kind of a middling point,
Yeah,
like a break
neutral
point?
ground territory.
Yeah,
I'm not
neutral ground.
particularly massive on them, but I
Okay.
don't particularly feel really down them either at this
Yeah,
stage.
I suppose there is part of me that sort of, and maybe that I have to call myself out on it, but I sort of think the fact that Harrogate Town are still starting Warren Burrell and Jack Muldoon, I just think, yeah, at what point do you start to evolve? They were part of
Yes.
the squad that came up in 2020, and they're both veterans now, and in some ways you like it that you've got people who they can be relied on day to day and carry the culture and all that kind of thing, but I don't know, for them to be starting in 2025 at this level,
Well, it's a couple of things. One of them is Warren Burrell is ultimate utility. You just stick him anywhere in the back line. He's even had goes in midfield in the past. He's just been that adaptable for I think nearly
yeah.
400 games he's closing on for them now. So they've always just found a use for him. And injuries happen during a season. You lose your right back for a period. Just swap Warren in there, slot him in at left back, slot him in where he needs to go. Muldoon's the really impressive one because it feels like time and time again he's just displacing the strikers who come in. Harrogate keep getting a guy in to end up being the new number 9 and he just keeps finding a way to still get in there to contribute. Maybe part of it for now is his alternatives are Sean Mikulski and Bennett, and these guys are not fitness proof. Bennett in particular has had that throughout his entire career, sadly, and Mikulski's currently got an injury too. So there's that spot for him. Now they've got to succeed Josh March, who had a good season last year to them. It's the opportunity for him to play in there at the moment and feature for them. I just think he's got a nice supporting cast behind him. I just really enjoy that trio behind the striker in particular.
To be fair, yeah, I think Duke McKenna is having a good time of things at the moment, and I do like some of the football they played for a couple of the goals at Fleetwood. So maybe there is a bit of room for encouragement. I mean, I'm a massive.
You say about the moving on. There was a point where we thought Josh Falkingham was going to be there to return to, and they have moved on from him. There will come a point where Barella Muldoon have moved on, but if they're still contributing and able to play effectively to starts, then don't knock it at them. I'd say.
Yeah, that's fair. I like Jack Evans as well, who they got from Halifax, didn't they? He's a very energetic player. He can play midfield, I think, as well. So yeah, they have recruited well from non-league, so I'll give them that. So yeah, maybe I'm a bit harsh in putting them in that shoehorning them into that bracket. So maybe they're a little bit better than I'm giving them credit for. In terms of I mean, I think that the reason why I'd put it down to 16 teams is you've got Colchester, who thumped Chesterfield 6-2 and then went at one
They've
at
started
Grimsby.
clicking a bit, haven't they, these last couple?
Yeah, I think so. I think a couple of statement performances from them. I think Micah and Bick looks like a really smart loan from Charlton. And then I'd also say Oldham in 15th. They've drawn a lot of games, but their data is actually quite encouraging and they're creating chances. So they've been a lot better than I was expecting, even though the results.
Yeah, definitely. I love the signing of Michael Mellon, not just because it's Mickey's son, but just also I haven't forgotten how good Mellon was at Morecambe previously. Just how impressive I was in that half season with him. So to see him back in League Two, really, really encouraging to me.
Yeah.
Kane Drummond seems to have. Can't believe Kane Drummond hasn't found the net yet at some point in the season. I feel like every time I watch an Oldham set of highlights, though, he seems to have been let 3 loose behind on the back line 1-on-1 and somehow not scored.
Which says two things, doesn't it, Ed? It says that he's got searing pace, but I think you have to question Kane Drummond from a productivity angle, and I would just wonder whether he's up to League Two. I think of him more, you know how Tranmere have had, I don't know if he's still there, but Harvey Saunders, where he gets into lots of positions. And I think actually maybe in the National League, where you've got an advantage, a bigger advantage over defence in terms of pace, you've got more leeway to be wasteful and you can still get into double figures. Whereas I don't know that if that's the case in League Two. I think it's a higher technical ceiling required.
No, I'd agree with that. Oldham do feel like they could be set on more points than they do currently. I think the weekend just gone, actually, that Barrow is kind of a reflection of it. Feels like another missed opportunity to them to get themselves a bit higher.
Yeah, I think Oldham are, I mean, they've only lost 3 games so far, and in a lot of the draws, they've been the better team. So I've done some good defensive standards set already. So I'm liking the look of Oldham. Got best defensive record in league as well. So yeah, good work from Mickey Mellon. I've got to give him his due for that. What do you make of who was I going to ask you about? Bromley I wanted to talk about because they got that 1-0 win at Crewe. They remind me a bit of sort of Wickham from 10 years ago, in that they're very good at spoiling games, if you like, and making the opposition worse. And I think that's a quality that that Bromley have got as well.
It's similar to last year, I guess, where I just really like the call that's put in place. They've changed their wide positions essentially. I wasn't expecting this emergence of Marcus Ithil as the right wing back, which is quite nice. I kind of think he's a bit similar to Pinnock, I'd say, in some ways. I think he's kind of a more forward player at heart who just works really well on that wing back, because just behind him is this really big, solid core that can include people like Sawunmi, Cameron, Webster when he appears. We've even seen Odatayo teacher in there too. I really like adding Honda Mark into the midfield unit too. It's interesting because I really thought the other standout is Michael Cheek in the names, but then it felt like Ben Thompson was going really under the radar for his contributions last year. Not really is guaranteed to feature as much anymore. Feels like
No.
what we're seeing from Arthur's Jude, from Arthur's Ashley Charles and Honda Mark and even Crowhouse is actually leaving Thompson not yet a guaranteed to feature. In fact, even Whiteley featuring in there too. So that dependence, it felt like there was previously on Thompson to be that big midfield influence, doesn't feel like it's there anymore. And I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Arthurs and Charles have got that understanding because they've played together regularly over the last few seasons. And I also think that even when Bromley aren't having a great game in possession, they've always got that option to release Mitch Pinnock with a simple diagonal, and Pinnock can always create something. And I think that having somebody of that kind of quality who can bring that bit of flair and those quality deliveries, it can mean that they can always have that ability to score something out. And again, I think Kraus is coming on. I was impressed with Kraus and Pinnock. They were the 2 creative ones. I think they're a very industrious team that's very compact and well organised. But Kraus and Pinnock are the ones that I would go to and think, yes, they can make something happen for Bromley.
Just another mention to Michael Cheek, who I think now has 124 league goals for Bromley in his many years there. Remarkable. The late career renaissance of him, or not renaissance, sorry, the late career peak of him is utterly remarkable. One of my favourite things about the lower leagues right now, really. This guy, years and years of scoring goals in non-league, finally gets his chance in the Football League, I think at 33, wins the Golden Boot in his 3rd season, and is just still the main man for the goals now. There's not been many strikers like him at this level for a long time.
The late peak for Cheek. Any concerns for Crewe Alexandra for you in terms of recent performances? I thought they were poor against Bromley, obviously against Barrow, I thought as well a couple of weeks ago. I did wonder about, listen, I think Lee Bell's done a really good job, and I do think that for them to be in the playoff conversation again, as things stand, I think is impressive. But I also look at it, and they played 3 at the back against Bromley, and they had Lewis Billington as a right wing back when he's much more of a conservative right back, I would say, in a 4. And I just wonder from a selection point of view whether, if Lee Bell had been a little bit braver and possibly gone with 4-2-3-1 and had Owen Lunt in the 10 and started that way, could it have been slightly different for Crewe?
I think the best thing to do with Crewe is not expect anything. I can't work this team out, because you go back to the game of Thor that I was really impressed with how they handled that at Harrogate, going behind initially, turning it back around, getting all back in their favour. My favourite asset at the minute in this Crewe team is probably Reece Hutchinson, who I think has come in to be a really adequate attacking left back to take that role and position as being occupied by Max Conway last year. Just really enjoyed what he offers from that left-hand side. And I was really encouraged by how that all turned around at Harrogate. And then they're just really poor at home to Bromley. So it just kind of keeps slipping back the way. And I can't. The moment I start getting confident with Crewe, it goes back the other way again. And I start losing faith. I just can't just best to leave him alone, Gav, and just let him
Yeah,
get on with
just
things
don't
at the
expect
minute.
anything
It's
from
similar to
them.
Cambridge in some ways, because Cambridge I really like as a first 11, and I was getting really on board with them, and then they're going to lose to Shrewsbury. So I just leave them to it. Just don't try and
I do
get any
feel
expectations
though.
on them.
I do think, though, Ed, I don't see Cambridge losing many games, because even the defeat at Shrewsbury, it was the case of the opposition scoring 2 from 4 shots at goal all game. And that's probably not going to happen every week. And if Shane Lavery's maybe a little bit more clinical as opposed to the opposition, I think, that game could easily.
And they stop making less errors in possession too. That would help, because that's how the first goal came, of course. So.
Yeah, I don't know if Corey Smith is the one I'd want on the ball on the edge of the defensive.
Well, I think there's a present injury to Don Ball, which is part of the reason that's affected. I think they went through a slight shift in shape from what they've been playing previously. But again, it's probably similar to Harrogate in some ways, where what I quite like is when they go 4-2-3-1, you've got a trio behind the striker of James Brophy, Adam Mayer, and maybe Elias Kachunga or someone similar to that, or Solly Kai, for instance, instead.
Yeah.
And again, that works for me. I like that, whether it's Kouassi leading the line or Lever leading the line. It wasn't Perry starting the season, but he's had injury problems too. I like that 11 when it's all together at Cambridge, and that's part of the reason I'd want to be a bit hopeful they could have an okay campaign.
I would say it's a top half team on paper, but I think with Neil Harris, there's a chance that they can get top 7, because I do think that he's a manager who can get teams performing above the sum of their parts. What would I wanted to ask you about Steve Cottrell's impact at Cheltenham. 4 points from the first 2 games, could easily have been 6. Are you hopeful that Cheltenham can put some form together under Cottrell?
Like to think so, wouldn't you? This is the benefit, I think, of being a league below League One. As in, you go back to 2 years ago, they had that really poor start under Wade Elliott, let go, and try as they might under Darryl Clark, he was just playing catch up the whole time. And the problem was League One's got such an enormous relegation zone. Even getting yourself back in the mix, you're still a way off getting towards 20th, and they came very close towards the end. You looked at this time, another terrible start. In comes the hero, the Messiah, if you want to call it, from a Cheltenham Town perspective. I hadn't properly realised what he'd done there till I've actually looked back on it, and now I fully understand just why they admire him so much. Now I fully do understand it now. Just the buzz that can lift around the place. And he looks and thought, well, you've had this poor start, but it's a 2-team relegation zone, and there's a catchable bunch right above you. And pretty much instantly they've got themselves back in the mix already. It's kind of annoying that they're sat 24th, and I feel like their mood's actually better than quite a lot of teams above them, just because of how this feels at the moment with them. But very little they still need to add to get themselves out of there and get themselves in a more comfortable position. And I just think after Flynn was chopping and changing too much of his selections, I think already Cottrell's come in and said, I want to put this guy here, I want to play this proper left back. We're going to go and do this properly, get ourselves out of it.
And Cottrell's already been back to add in the free agent market with the signings of
Ben Stevenson is a fantastic addition. I really like that to the base of midfield.
Yeah, I think he's a quality midfielder at this level. So for them to get him, and obviously they've been happy to start him straight away. No, issues with match sharpness and all that kind of thing. So I think that's pretty encouraging. But I think with Cheltenham looking a bit resurgent, it's interesting actually because Shrewsbury and Newport also won, so it shows how important that win was for those 4 points worth for Cheltenham. But I worried about Accrington Stanley and Crawley at the moment.
Crawley, I feel like aren't getting the rub of the green. I kind of feel like they are generally playing better than a side 21st in the division would have you. That was a good display against Walsall.
It was. I think McCurdy and Pereira look like wing backs who can create things.
I don't like that McCurdy or wing back. It just feels insanity to me, to be honest. But I suppose that's what you have to do when you've got available options that you have. And I still think he'll be back from Jamaica at some point. But Kaheim Dixon's looked a really nice addition from Charlton. Very lively forward. I just particularly love these forward areas, and it's been a bit too much chop and change to my liking in midfield. They missed Jay Williams for a period. Barami's been okay in the half. Or Anderson's been in there at times.
I like Max Anderson's movement.
Yeah, and I want McCurdy back in that front line because yes, Loss scored, but Loss had his generally not been that impressive for other clubs recently. Shimanga had a bit of output, I thought, at Swindon previously, but I think McCurdy's the one to look at, and particularly forward areas to them.
I suppose what I would say, to be devil's advocate, because traditionally I would have agreed with you, and I do think actually it looks like McCurdy was actually I thought he was left wing back, but it actually looks like he might have been in the 10 on
Yeah, he
Saturday
was. Yeah,
alone. There we go.
Scott Malone out left.
Yeah, so maybe that emphasises my point that in terms of from a movement point of view, he offered. The other thing I would say is if we look at Harry McCurdy's best season, because he's definitely had managers that aren't right for him, like Darryl Clark and I think Simpson was it at Carlisle. But anyway, he's had fits that weren't right for him. But his best season was it the 21-22 season with Swindon, and it was under
Luke Williams. No, not Luke Williams.
Ben Garner.
That's it.
But Lindsay was on the coaching staff, so Lindsay's got the inside track on how to maximise Harry McCurdy, and he is one that does need a bit of a niche management. But if Scott Lindsay can press the right,
I feel like the challenge with McCurdy is just managing the way he can be. He's a wicked footballer, wicked, deadly forward. We've seen it time and time again in little spells. He'll just get under your skin if you're in opposition, and sometimes that could be to his own disservice, that he kind of aggravates things too much to the point that it puts too much expectation perhaps on him, and he doesn't deliver to level, and it gets too much stick as a result of that. And he's had to shift around the positions a bit more, and I think he probably wanted to at the start here to Crawley. But you looked at him when he arrived at the summer window, just knowing how Crawley generally acts season on season. They seem to just always never have a quiet season. There seems to be something dramatic about them. And I just thought Scott Lindsay re-unlocking Harry McCurdy would be pretty fun for the rest of the league too, just to see that, to make that season go.
Just to annoy opposition fans.
Yeah.
He'll certainly do that, Harry McCurdy. I think, talking of performances that were good and maybe didn't quite get the full rewards, I think Gillingham played very well against Cheltenham. And I'm not going to buy into this kind of, Gillingham has started well, but they always drop off, because I think the way they played against Cheltenham, I think suggests that they're going to stay in that top, in and around that top 7.
Yeah, and I would say I don't think that was their main front line that started that game either. I think it was Johnny Williams with Palmer Holden and Vokes starting out, whereas before Nevitt came on and impacted the game, they didn't have Andrews through suspension. Dax just about come back in. I think that trio as the kind of front point of this team would be quite effective for them.
See, I would actually go with Nevitt or Andrews. I like Palmer Holden because he's got that mix of the aggression and the running power with a bit of physicality, even if he's maybe not built to be an absolute target man. So I would have Andrews or Nevitt with Palmer Holden and one of Williams or Dack in behind. And I don't know if I would fancy playing Williams and Dack simultaneously. I feel like that you take a bit more of a risk in terms of out of possession stuff.
No, I'd still think as well. I'm trying to remember the exact fitness, but we know what Robert McKenzie offers his value into midfield or into defence. I feel like they've been missing Armani Little for a period of time. Yeah. And I kind of pictured Armani Little as this kind of link between that sort of backwards area and the more forwards area. So to have him in the midfield would be quite handy for him.
Yeah, I think Robbie McKenzie's been fantastic for them in midfield, hasn't he? And Ethan Coleman's midfielder that I like as well. I also really like Sam Gale as well, because I think he's a very intelligent defender with good sort of positional awareness. So I'm feeling good about Gillingham. I think I don't know whether they're good enough for the top 3, but I see them finishing in the top 7 for the first time for quite a while, actually. I don't know. I think it must have been.
No, it'd be nice because Gillingham have been the kind of burner for this league for a couple of years now. They've had so much expectation. We have a clear idea about what the Gallantons want. They see this kind of untapped potential because of the where they are in the country, in the region, and how they're the most elite top level side in there. But you're never really quite sure how they wanted to get it. They're clear they wanted promotion, but you weren't quite sure whether they were going, and they were chopping and changing so much with managers and going back and forth with methodologies of the playing styles of those managers. And it feels like we're now settled with Ainsworth, and we know Ainsworth's going to make them play. Yeah. And particularly when you think about the number of big strikers they got, I certainly see a lot of sense in the way that goes.
Sure.
And it's been a positive start. I think they rode their luck to keep their unbeaten run as long as they did. There was some very, very late results that managed to keep them going in the unbeaten way. Lost it since, but fine. That's some good recovery there against Cheltenham, and I'd like to see him go back to winning ways and start pushing again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we send our best wishes to Gareth Ainsworth. I think he's had a heart operation that's gone well. So we all send our thoughts with him as he continues his recovery. What do you make of Grimsby Town? Because I think it was possibly their worst performance of the season against Colchester at the weekend. But overall, you've got to be pretty impressed with them. Top scorers in the division.
Well, they're doing well in the League Cup, aren't they? I'm getting a bit distracted by just how well it seems to be going in all competitions. Yeah, we were quite positive on them. I just really like the settled 11. It's one of the more settled 11s out there. I think they might occasionally swap Courier with Jamie Walker, and Jamie Walker, particularly in that Cheltenham game, showed exactly what he can be about with his shots and range. Certainly, I cannot get over how Kieran Green has basically turned into a brilliant box crashing midfielder. Just didn't feel like that was what was going to happen when he arrived from Halifax, however long ago it was now.
But it feels like, as well as that, he's a culture carrier as well.
Yeah.
Like, just the way that he turns up and the way that he's bought into David Artell's ideas, which wouldn't have been easy because they're not a huge amount, what he's particularly used to. So I imagine he's been an absolute dream to work with. And I think he offers that blend to sort of complement some of those more flair attacking players that Grimsby got. But one thing I would possibly ask Ed, if I'm, I know I'm it's slightly off the back of their worst performance, so slightly affected by that, but I would maybe ask that in terms of central defence and the way they set up, I would say Sweeney's possibly more attacking than Rogers. I think Rogers is going to go for the flank, whereas I think Sweeney can go either way. But I think there's a lot of responsibility on Tyrrell Warren in terms of sometimes a middle centre half in possession. It can look that way sometimes. And I just wonder whether, Tyrrell Warren as a centre half brings that enough of that physicality. And maybe is that one thing.
Well, I thought him as a right back at Barrow.
Yeah, he was at right back at Barrow.
That's what I was a bit surprised. I remember, I think we started the season with McJannet and Tam as the pair. And Tam had an injury. Warren came in, and maybe Warren, the memory still is hanging on to how good he was in that Manchester United game. The fact that he got a goal in that, for instance.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cemented his place alongside McJannet since. When really, I remember looking at the start and thinking, feels like a right back. It almost feels like him and Rogers should switch. I feel like Rogers is more of a centre half than him.
It surprises me a little bit that it's worked out this way. I suppose you would argue Harvey Rogers has that powerful run on him, doesn't he? And I think that, maybe from an overlapping Darragh Burns perspective, Harvey Rogers offers something. But I suppose, again, it's one of those things where you'd probably criticise the manager if it went badly. But when it goes well, it's it's a genius because he's shown the ability to spot skill sets and put players in different positions. But yeah, listen, I think Tyrrell Warren's had a good start to the season, but it is something that I wonder about in terms of that central defence. I wonder, because I think they're very, very strong in other areas. And they're without Span Thorson, who's only just come back from injury, and Danny Rose as well, and soon Sup Bell. I don't think
it's all right because Vernon's been great, and Jace Cav has been a fantastic pickup from non-league.
Exactly, yeah.
Really, really impressed with him.
So
not on penalties, but open play. The rest of it has all been lovely with him.
Yeah, but I think they can get stronger in terms of options because of the players coming back. Because I think Danny Rose can come back in and make a big impact. So I think lots of positives when it comes to Grimsby Town. Where are you on Chesterfield at the moment, Ed?
Ticking along. Kind of thought we'd have them similar, I guess, to maybe where Swindon are. We had a lot of hopes for them at the start of this campaign. I want to believe that was just kind of a messy day against Colchester. Just that margin of victory, I wouldn't expect to come on.
You're allowed a day off, aren't you, from time to time?
I would say so, yeah. I don't think we're getting slightly similar problems to before where there are some injury issues. Whereas previously there would have been a ton of depth, particularly in those areas behind the striker, or indeed in the striker, actually, with Grigg and Bonish as your options. But again, they've had to cope a bit without Grigg recently. I think Dylan Duthie's had a bit of an injury problem that's kept him out the side too. But the 11 that could well play the upcoming weekend still feels like a pretty good 11 to put out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of the issue they had is they'd hoped that they'd have more options in central midfield,
Yeah,
and because they've had one or two injuries in that area, it's left them with obviously Ryan Stirk, Tom Naylor, and Fleck. And I don't think Fleck has the mobility to start many games in central midfield.
I think he's
So
going to this weekend. I think Naylor's suspended for
I was
accumulated
Naylor
yellows,
suspended.
so I think it's going to have to
Hmm.
be Fleck and Sturk for this weekend in particular.
But that's probably what I would identify for Chesterfield when it comes to midfield, because they had Matt Diaz, who's injured, and they're hoping that he would make a big impression, on their midfield depth. So I do think that maybe an athletic box-to-box midfielder in January to complement Ryan Stirk, I think could be
I
really
know that
good.
you're a guy who has opinion on elderly players, Gab. So, do you find McFadden and Dunkley imposing or due to expire at some point?
Oh, I love Carl McFadden. I think he's wildly underrated. He's an absolute class act. Like the way that he reads the game, he always seems to be in the right position and have time. And yes, he can be caught out against quick attackers if he's exposed and he doesn't have the protection and he doesn't have a fullback. But I think he reads the game so well. So for me, Tom Naylor and Kyle McFadden, I think, are really important to Chesterfield, because I think we saw at Colchester how open they can be without those two.
Okay, I thought you were expecting you to come out and say, "Oh, he's hitting 40 soon. That's going to be his expiry date coming up." But no, I'm pleased
No,
with that, because
I'm
sometimes
not
people
that
can
age, you said.
look at that back line. McFadden's what is he now 38? I think Dunkley's now
Probably, yeah.
33. Some
Mm.
people would look at that and say expiry date due on them some point soon. But no, at the minute it feels like a really formidable centre back pairing to have at this
What
level.
I actually think slightly differently, but I still think centre half is important for Chesterfield. I think they've got one coming in January, I believe. But the problem I think they have is that I don't think Jamie Grimes is up to certainly not top end League Two level. And I think they have a problem when maybe Carl McFadden can't play every single game, possibly. I think they have a problem when Grimes comes in, because I don't think he's quite at the same level. So for me, I think centre half is important, but not because of McFadden's age.
Mm-hmm. You're saying it's the depth behind. I'm
Yeah, I
agreeing with
think
that.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, what the other thing I would argue with Chesterfield is I think Lee Bonnis is really important, because they've got Dobra and Markanday, and I think having them in the same team is kind of a luxury in both senses of the word, because they're both fantastic footballers. We saw that last season, but they can also be a little bit languid at times. So you've got to have your centre forward that's really strongly at it against the ball, and I think Bonnis is, because I think he occupies defenders.
Mm-hmm.
So any teams that have kind of surprised you or caught your eye so far, Ed?
Surprised me.
I don't know if you have the table up in front of you at the moment.
No, I do.
Yeah,
Swindon are super fun.
I've been very surprised by how well Swindon have been.
I think it's worth mentioning because they have that injury news to Harry Smith, who felt really integral to them last year, with just what he offers as just a brute physical force up top. And you're worried, did he feel the loss of that? Aaron Drine has stepped up brilliantly in his place, and Drine and Palmer as a front pair, I really like how that's going. And I love the emergence of these two wing backs they got, Joe Snowden and Finley Monroe.
I love those two.
I thought Monroe was going to be a centre back, and I thought Snowden was going to be a midfielder. He's found a spot for them perfectly, Holloway, in that team. And Tom Nichols being converted into basically an all-round midfielder, having initially been a forward and then sort of attacking midfielder, slowly working his way back. I'm really liking how that Swindon team looks, and there's lots of fun, plenty of goals in that team.
I think I just want to build on your comments on Snowden and Monroe there, Red, because I think Snowden has that lovely ability to just collide with the ball and get into really attacking areas, and his productivity is pretty good as well. Whereas Finley Monroe, I think, has this great link-up play, and I think his vision is really good, and he's got brilliant eye for a pass. And I think those two between them are just so creative, and it's a team that's oozing with creativity because you've got the target man presence of Ollie Palmer, who can facilitate through that physicality and hold up play. You've got Drynan, who's a really powerful runner. You've got Nichols, who you mentioned, got that creativity shown in more advanced areas earlier in his career. And you've got Kilkenny, who's that deep-lying playmaker who can switch the ball really well. And so you put all those things into the melting pot, and they've just got so many angles where they can hurt opponents.
Not to mention the possibility that he doesn't even guarantee starts at him, but Will Wright is one of the best technical centre-backs, I think, in this division. I mean, he's officially a centre-back. He could go in midfield or out a wing-back. We've seen it previously at other clubs, but dead ball taking defenders, I do enjoy those. And Will Wright is one of the, it's not even a guarantee to play at the minute, just the options they've got. Ollie Clark's been back there. You're getting Tathazoli back up to speed. Wilson Brown's featured in there. There's options in a lot of areas in this Scotland team right now.
Ollie Clark's having a bit of a personal rebrand, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, if Nichols is taking his midfield spot, he's got to go further back now.
To
get himself in the team.
Maybe they'll have a centre half in goal.
Where he's going.
I'm torn in terms of Swindon going forward because there's still part of me that finds it hard, dare I say, to trust Holloway because of the lack of body of evidence of work over the last 10 years from him. I find it hard to trust Swindon as a club because of Clem Mulfooney's ownership and this feeling that as a club they could sort of self-combust at any moment. And yet I've been so impressed by what I've seen. Do you feel as torn as I do on Swindon?
I don't feel like I've heard a lot of nuisance from behind the scenes with Mulfooney. It feels like it's gone quite quiet with him. So my instinct at the minute is this should be all right. It feels like we've got a lot of focus on pitch matters, and that should be okay for them. I don't know. It's the other example I can think of on the top of my head is kind of Sheffield Wednesday with Chansiri and that idea. You had Sheffield Wednesday, particularly in League One, getting up onto Darren Moore. You were enjoying it. They looked a really good team, but you had this thought in your mind: Chansiri could still damage things. I don't feel like Mulfooney's going to do that yet. Maybe that's the case. We just have to wait and see with that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap things up there. But it's been great to have your expertise on, Ed. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks everyone for watching or listening. Indeed, this has been the EFL Debate League 2 podcast. We'll see you again next week.